the major economic significance of this decision with two financial experts, Ted Jenkin, CEO of Oxygen Financial, and Jean Chatzky, CEO of HerMoney.com. Good to have you both on here. And I wonder, when you look at the aggregate here, the Fed is saying we are bringing inflation under control. Perhaps it's even lower than we thought it would be at this point a few weeks ago. But unemployment may go up a little higher than we expected, and growth may be a little slower. I'll start with you, Jean, first. Does that still fall into the category of a soft landing here? Or are they worried that maybe they underestimated the risks?
I think there's no doubt, as Julia said, that they are a little worried about unemployment, but yet we are still in a growing economy. We are not talking about a recession. And I also think that the Fed has been accused of being late to the party before and really didn't want that to happen this time.
They signal, Ted, here, because as always, you have the move that happens on the day, and then you have this kind of tea leaf reading of what's in the notes and what does the Fed chairman say in his availability with reporters. But they are indicating, as Julia noted, more cuts before the end of the year, at least a half percentage point. Typically, how quickly does that juice affect the economy? You get a half point today. Can it begin to impact those growth figures and those jobless figures within days, weeks, months? How long is the lag time?
Well, I think more importantly, Jim, it's going to affect the lives of a lot of Americans that are struggling right now, because the key word is variable. If you have variable rate student loans, variable rate credit cards, or auto loans, it could bring back $30, $40, $50 a month in a bunch of households in America that are just struggling to get gas at the pump or pay for their groceries. So I would see them still doing this 1% this year, but of course they have to walk that tightrope of keeping inflation at 2 to 2.5% and not letting unemployment spike.
That's a good point, because listen, a lot of rates, well, some are not. A lot of people, their home mortgage will be a 30-year fixed rate. That's not, but some people do have adjustable rate mortgages that are adjusted regularly. You think of home equity loans, you think of credit card loans, that kind of thing. But Jean, back to you. In terms of getting the economy moving on a bit quicker, how long does it take typically to see that effect?
You'll start to see some things immediately. There's a lot of hope that this will start to unlock the housing market, which has been really frozen because of lack of supply, but also because so many people have mortgages where they can't refinance and they can't move, but because they would get into a loan that is so much more expensive. This is the sort of thing where over time that will start to happen. You also saw the stock market pop, and the reason that it popped is because when interest rates go down, companies can borrow more cheaply. They'll be able to hire more people. Again, take a little while, but the wheels will start to turn.
Ted, there'd been something of a backlog in the property market, the real estate market. Listen, home prices have stayed quite strong, but the sense that folks had been waiting to buy because interest rates, mortgage rates were higher. How long does this take effect to, it impacts mortgage rates immediately, but significantly enough to impact the housing market?
Well, I think the magic number is as mortgage rates get below 6%, as Jean mentioned, there are going to be a lot of people in this logjam that said, I locked into a 3% mortgage rate during COVID. Why am I going to sell my house now and buy a bigger house? As interest rates come down, some of those folks will undo that logjam by stepping up to a bigger house. And that will allow an entry point for a lot of people out there who simply want to afford their first house. Yeah,
there's a carry-on effect that you could see. Jean, we are in the midst of a presidential election, you might have noticed, and inflation. Well, the economy is certainly a top issue, and inflation is a top issue as well. And you will often hear the candidates asked how they will address inflation. I want to play how Trump answered that question yesterday when asked about the cost of groceries in a town hall, and get your thoughts on the other side. Have a listen.
How are you going to bring down the cost of food and groceries?
So we have to start always with energy, always. I don't want to be boring about it, but there's no bigger subject. It covers everything. If you make donuts, if you make cars, whatever you make, energy is a big deal, and we're going to get that. It's my ambition to get your energy bill within 12 months down 50%. Interest rates are going to follow, and actually they're going to follow for another reason. The economy is now not good, and interest rates, you'll see they'll do the rate cut and all the political stuff tomorrow, I think. And, you know, will he do a half a point? Will he do a quarter of a point? But the reason is because the economy is not good.
I mean, the question, Gene, is, I mean, he says it's all about energy. Is it?
Look, there's no doubt that consumers are concerned about energy prices, but the place that they see those prices most is at the pump. And the price of a gallon of regular gas right now is $3.25. I was driving in New Jersey this week. It was under $3 a gallon. These are the sorts of things that people continue to notice, just like they notice the prices of eggs and milk. There's an overall frustration with consumers that although those prices in the grocery store popped, they have not come down. They're not going to come down. The question is, can we keep them from continuing to go up? And it looks like they've succeeded at that.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, Ted, before we go, is that oftentimes voters can overestimate politicians' ability to affect prices. And it's not often talked about, but there was massive inflation around the world in the midst of the pandemic, a whole host of supply chain issues beyond the effect of stimulus here in the U.S., which also economists believe had an effect. But do the candidates themselves actually significantly drive the rate of inflation?
Jim, in the end, when you look at something like groceries, I use a Taylor Swift line from her song where she says, "It's me, I'm the problem." And part of the issue here, quite frankly, is American consumers have an insatiable appetite to spend, and they need to start spending less and move to brands that cost less. This law of supply and demand will always hold true in America. We're the ones that will affect it the most to drive those prices down.
Maybe save a little bit more, too. Saving rates have been going the wrong direction in the eyes of some. Ted Jenkin, Gene Chatzky, thanks so much to both of you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.